Hi everyone, welcome to Just Like Other Girls, a podcast where we discuss things that matter to us, things that don't, and a bunch of stuff in between. I'm Shandy,
And I'm Alicia.
and today we'll be discussing about red flags.
This may seem like a bit of a downer topic, but actually the reason why we wanted to talk about it is just because we spent quite a few episodes talking about entering the working world, being semi-adults or whatever it is we said. We decided as you grow up, you need to set boundaries. And I think a lot of us didn't learn that for a very long time. So today we just wanted to talk through a few of them and discuss what we do and do not consider red flags. First of all, I guess we should break this up into categories. Do you have any red flags for friends?
The first thing when I think about red flags between friends is when you notice that they are never happy for your achievements. It's either that or they bring up their own achievements to downplay yours. Yeah, I think a lot of my experiences with this red flag is when I try to share my achievement because I'm happy about it, right? But someone would just downplay my achievement and make it seem so insignificant. Yeah, and it results in a lot of issues within myself, like lowering my self-esteem or just making me upset at that moment, which I feel like in the long run is gonna be unhealthy for your friendship if you are unable to be happy for each other.
Yeah, definitely. It's so weird because I don't think I have as many of those experiences now. But I've definitely had experiences in the past where if I get a high score on a test or something good happens to me over the weekend, if I told a certain friend, I'd just get sidelined by oh, this happened to me over the weekend. Or they just change the topic. And yeah, looking back, it made me feel really scummy. I know what you mean.
What about yours, Alicia?
I feel like this also applies to relationships, but when people constantly downplay themselves, a lot of people have self-esteem issues, and I could never fault someone for that. But I feel like sometimes you get the vibe that a person is only saying something bad about themselves so that other people can praise them.
Like
And
fishing for compliments.
a little bit, yeah. Similar to yours, when something good happens to you and you tell them and they respond with something self-deprecating that kind of makes you feel bad for your own achievements. The vibe is a little bit off to me when a person seems to consistently fish for compliments or try to get you to verbally reassure them.
Another thing that I notice is a red flag is when they lie about everything. This applies to both friendships and relationships, I guess. I think it's never healthy for someone to be a compulsive liar. I mean, of course, there are many reasons for that, but in general, I'm just really skeptical of people who lie very often, even about the tiny little details, because then I will wonder, when can I trust them, or when are they being truthful with me? Yeah, and I think in every type of relationship, whether be it family, friendship, or with a significant other, trust is a very important factor, and lying destroys that trust.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. It can seem very harmless. Honestly, I feel when I was younger, I used to fall into this trap also. But catching people in little white lies, especially when it wouldn't have done anything to harm your friendship or wouldn't have made them seem worse in your eyes, it just makes you feel like you don't really know the person, and it really gives you a bad taste in your mouth. Oh, actually, I do have one more now that I think about it. It's when they don't respect your boundaries, and not about
Mm.
big things. Obviously, if someone doesn't respect your big boundaries, that's a huge red flag. But even small things, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but did you ever meet someone where if they asked you if you were ticklish and you said yes, they would tickle you anyway?
No, but I would hate if someone did that to me. I would literally hate
Yeah.
it so much.
Yeah. And really now that used to happen to me and people I knew a lot. Maybe that's just the circle I ran in, because I know it sounds really weird. But just small little boundaries that can make a person uncomfortable. I feel like crossing those for a joke just feels kind of icky to me.
Yeah, definitely. I think it also shows how much that person actually respects you, because if they cannot even respect your small boundaries like this, what about the big ones then?
Yeah, and it's really weird, when people pass things off as jokes, where they say something that might hurt you, or when they do something that you don't quite agree with, and then they say, oh, it's a joke, especially if it happens multiple times. I feel like everyone's made a joke in bad taste before, but continually doing it really skeezes me out.
So now let's move on to relationship red flags. Alicia, do you have any red flags that you notice in relationships?
Not from personal experience, but I've definitely watched a lot of friends go through their relationships and confide in me. And it's very weird watching like how different friends with different personalities treat different kinds of guys and girls that they date. I would say one red flag that's always stood out to me is when they act differently in front of their friends and with you. I've seen so many of my friends wonder why their boyfriends, for some reason it's always boyfriends, are like nicer to them, but when they're with their guy friends, suddenly they feel like they're a third wheel in their boyfriend's friend group, or why suddenly their boyfriend's like particularly rude to them when they're around the guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do hear about this quite often from my female friends. That's actually a really weird thing that I just noticed when you mentioned. Why would you say that it is a red flag though?
I guess if I were to think about it, it feels like they're willing to be one person around you, and maybe that is or is not their authentic self, but when they're around their chosen friend group, they choose to be someone else. To me, it feels like if you're changing yourself around your chosen friend group, for me, it makes me wonder, do you not want to seem vulnerable around your friends? Or do you feel like being vulnerable is like a sign of weakness? Or even just do you feel like being emotionally open is something that you don't want to show others?
I have another perspective on this. I think it's quite a universal thing that people change in front of the people they like romantically. But like you mentioned, it does raise concerns if the difference is too drastic, especially in the shoes of being their significant other. If I notice that much of a difference between the personalities my partner has, I do understand why I will feel that it is a red flag. But for me personally, maybe because I've never experienced this problem, I think I just give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've seen so many people, friends, and even myself before act really differently around people they like. Obviously, you want to put out a good impression, or maybe you're just nervous. But for me, I'm coming from the place of when you specifically tease or treat your significant other poorly in front of your friends, that just really icks me out. It makes me wonder like why you present two entirely different personas between two different groups.
Yeah, I think this has to do with your respect for your partner, because if you're using them as the butt of the joke in front of your friends, it's like they are just an object but not your partner.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I see where you're coming from.
What about you?
Okay.
Do you have any?
Yeah, I saw on TikTok that a lot of girls say that they're insecure or upset about their boyfriends following other girls on Instagram. And by that, I mean following influencers or girls the boyfriends don't personally know. So they are not like their friends or anything like that. I don't really have my own experience on this, but I can see why it's a red flag, especially when, for example, I'm the significant other and I tell my partner I'm insecure about the fact that you follow so many girls that look a certain type of way. Do you mind if you could just unfollow them so I feel more reassured in the relationship? If I have voiced out this concern to them, especially, I think it's disrespectful and it's definitely a red flag if they don't take some sort of action to reassure me, or they get way too defensive on that matter. Because if those girls that they follow don't matter at all, then why are they getting so defensive over it?
Oh,
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I don't have my own experience on this. I'm just thinking about how I would feel if I'm in that position, but I don't really know how I would actually act if someone did that to me. Yeah, what do you think?
what's interesting is when you were talking about boyfriends following girls that they don't know, I've never really understood that perspective. But I think that's just me because I've never really seen an issue with it. But then you mentioned if these like strangers don't matter that much, then why are they getting defensive? And that's when like the green light flicked in my head. I get it. You made the clear distinction that in this situation, you've already expressed your discomfort, but your significant other isn't willing to do anything about it. I mean, I guess it's just me because I would never ask my significant other to do like anything overtly like I demand you unfollow these people or whatever, but it would really weird me out if they didn't do anything, not even like talk to me about it, or if they knew that I was uncomfortable but still continued to do exactly the same things as before.
Yeah, I have to mention though, even though I raised the examples of seeing girls on TikTok talk about this, I do know that there are guys who experience the same thing with the opposite gender. It could apply to anyone. And I think in general, it's important to not be a hypocrite as well. I think it's definitely a red flag if you demand your partner to unfollow all these people that make you feel insecure, but you don't do the same thing for them, or if you do the same thing to them. It's about respect lah, for each other.
Actually, that brings up a great point about like a different red flag, which would be like double standards. I have such a weird outlook on people who think that there are specific roles people should fulfill in relationships, especially like in guy-girl relationships. I've always found it like a massive red flag when it's okay for a guy or a girl to do one thing, but not for their significant other to do the same. But I think that's just part of a bigger argument. I think it does raise like a good point about if you want something from your partner, would you give the same to them, no matter how small it is?
Yeah, I do think that there's this odd fixation for some people on their gender roles. I think it's really odd and it's definitely a red flag because when it comes to like, for example, if you do get to the point where you're married and stuff, what if this person doesn't want to do the dishes just because he's a man? Or this person doesn't want to cook, or like this person doesn't want to go to work because she's supposed to stay at home or something. This is a bigger argument, like you mentioned. But we are talking about red flags today, so let's not go there.
Yeah. I do actually have one more, I think. I have like a few swirling around my head right now, but the one I think I want to bring up is I think it's applicable to both friendships and relationships. Honestly, where I am in life right now, I would actually say it's more applicable to friendships. I would say when you don't like who you are when you're with them, because I've definitely caught myself with some friends that in the past maybe weren't that good for me. And I've caught myself being like a little bit catty or saying things that when I was around like other friends, I wouldn't have said. And I think that goes back to the previous point I made, but I think a very hard lesson for me to learn was that if you don't like how you talk or act when you're around a person, that's likely both a red flag for them and for you to like watch yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've also caught myself in many situations where like I would want to impress certain people or just simply to fit in. So I do things that I don't mean or say things that I wouldn't say in usual context.
You're right. It definitely, at least from my experience, it definitely comes down to wanting to impress people or not wanting to like cause trouble. But I kind of realized over the years that like maybe it's worth causing a little bit of trouble or like extracting yourself from a situation with a person that makes you act or makes you feel like you should be acting a way you don't like. I feel like at this point we've already talked a lot from like personal experience or watching like our friends and what they've gone through. Do you think you've put up with any red flags on your end before? And what are they?
Yeah, I think one red flag that I put up with a lot is when people use me for their own benefit and I myself give them way too much benefit of the doubt. I've always had a soft spot for soft people, I guess. Like if someone appears to be really gullible, nice, all the positive words in general, I always have a soft spot for these people and I would do anything for them if they ask. This is when I caught myself slipping so many times where I keep giving and realize that they've never reciprocated the same energy that I've given them. I do notice that about myself, and now sometimes I joke about it. But at the end of the day, I think I found a greater self worth in me than to let other people use me for their own benefits.
Actually, yeah, I totally get what you mean because I feel like now that you've mentioned it, it brings up something from my past that up until this point, I feel like I forgot about. I guess this is my red flag, but when a person believes they are one way and then acts contrary to how they think they are. Because I've definitely known people who believe that they are really nice, really kind, but when they talk, it feels a lot more cutting, a little bit mean, a little bit catty. But then if you were to ask them, they kind of defer back to, no, I'm such a nice person, I would never do that. Sometimes I feel like maybe not even aware of it, but I also feel like I'm at the point where I'm not really inclined to put up with people who will treat me badly even if they don't know they are. I suppose this is my own fault, and to this day I still kind of suffer from it, but I feel like I've put up way too much with people who treat me badly just because I think like you, I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's gotten to the point where I've had other people tell me you shouldn't be putting up with how X is treating you. It's a really bad way to operate, but I feel like it's a red flag that I also need to start being aware of. I would say another red flag I have for this would be when people always joke about you to you. Obviously, I would prefer that than someone like joking, quote unquote, about me behind my back. But I think it comes back to the boundaries conversation, or just like how comfortable are you around somebody. Most people can handle a joke, but when a joke genuinely sounds mean, both to the people who hear it and to the person it's directed to, then it makes you wonder, like, where does this person draw the line, you know? When like something that would sound cruel to somebody else is okay to them because you're their friend, so they can say what they want to you.
I think a lot of us need a lot of time to grow and realize that we don't always have to put up with other people. There are things that you cannot put up with in relationships or friendships if you want it to sustain. So for me, it's disrespect. I think I've grown as a person to see the value in myself and to realize that I also have an ego. Why must I constantly put up with overstepping my boundaries or you disrespecting me? Of course, there are special cases, but I think that at this point where I'm going to be transitioning into like the workforce, am I really gonna still let these experiences happen to me? When I grow older, I'm gonna meet so much more people. I'm gonna have to deal with so much more situations. And if I don't take the chance to grow now and set my own boundaries to push past all of that, then when am I gonna do it? Because it's gonna put me in worse situations in the future.
I feel like a lot of us still have the urge to stay with people who might treat us badly or who don't know that what they are doing might hurt us because they're our friends. But I feel like there's a very interesting point to be made about at what point do you stop taking someone's nonsense and start focusing on yourself? Maybe by cutting them out, maybe by like distancing yourself slowly.
Okay, so speaking of how I've learned to not put up with disrespect, do you think you have any red flag that you have learned not to put up with as well?
Oh, yeah, there's a huge one. It's kind of ironic considering the fact that I just mentioned how I tend to take too much nonsense from other people. But something that immediately sends all the alarm bells ringing in my head is when people are mean to other people. It's weird because, like I said, I spent so long accepting bad behavior from others. But when I see a person I'm with disrespect or casually be mean to like their friends, their parents, even like public servants or like waiters, right? I just get so angry so quickly. Like, as much as possible, I don't put up with that. I don't like it when people I'm around, even when they're my friends, casually put down other people and it seems like it's a part of their day or part of a joke because for the person they're putting down, it might not be a joke. And I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up because I've worked in F&B for a while. And I feel that it's definitely a red flag when someone can't even treat other humans with proper respect, especially people who are just doing their job. This is also something that is quite important to me, but I didn't think about it until you've mentioned.
Obviously, logically, everyone knows the people around them are people, but I've always found it odd that there seem to be so many videos circulating around of people who treat people in the service industry like they aren't people, aka with like human decency. That's really something I can't put up with. What about you?
For me, like I've mentioned earlier, I've learned not to put up with disrespect in any way now. Something I do to counter it now is that I actually vocalize my thought because it doesn't give the other person the excuse to be like, I didn't know that you felt disrespected. I didn't know you felt this way or that way. I do see why it's difficult for other people to do that. But for me personally, I think it's really better off if you are able to vocalize how you feel and you are able to see how they react to your feelings. Then do you have anything that is a red flag but not really? Like something that can be a red flag or not depending on its circumstances?
I feel like most red flags, it kind of depends on circumstances anyway. But I would say if we are talking, it can either be kind of a weird thing or like a bad thing. I would say dry texters. It seems so trivial, but I think I'm very aware that like some people see dry texting or like unenthusiastic responses over message. They see it as kind of like you're making it clear that you don't want me here and that you don't want to talk to me. And obviously I feel like when you click with a person, you really do have like a pretty good conversation. But I would also say that I know so many dry texters, and as somebody who, especially when I'm like tired or stressed, can be a dry texter. I don't particularly see it as a red flag. I only see it as a red flag if I know for a fact that they only message certain people or they only message me this way.
I think I consider myself as a dry texter. So I don't really know what to say to that. But I can also understand from your point of view it could sometimes be a red flag depending on the circumstances.
For me, the red flag mostly comes from when the person's a dry texter all the time, no matter based on circumstance, and if they're only this way with you. That's what really tips me off. It's if they're exclusive dry texters.
I think for me, it's very interesting that you brought this up because there's definitely something in my mind right now, and that is backhanded compliments. I know people who say backhanded compliments not because they have ill intentions. They are just unable to phrase it in a manner where it sounds more pleasant. This might be a red flag if it happens way too many times. It is a red flag if you voice out your concern over it and they still do not acknowledge what they've done. But in general, I think some people are really just like that. They are just unable to understand that what they deem as a compliment might not be for someone else.
I think you definitely like hit it on the head when you said it's about how many times it happens. Definitely once or twice, I wouldn't like judge them too hard on it, but definitely I would say when someone is visibly uncomfortable, or yeah, like you said, they've already voiced their concerns or said that they're not comfortable, yeah, then that kind of just feels to me like you're not really taking their feelings into account. So have you found any red flags in yourself actually that you've identified in the past?
I think a red flag I've noticed is that I can get too straightforward sometimes. At this age, I know that there's definitely a difference between being straightforward and just being a mean person in general. And I would say that my past actions is just being mean, but I use the idea of, oh, I'm just a straightforward person. I just have no filter. I'm just honest. And that's definitely something I regret now that I look back.
Yeah, I would say kind of opposite to you. One of mine would be emotional distance. I find that when things get really difficult between my friends or when I see that people are arguing, the last thing I want to do is get involved and maybe I'll mediate. But as soon as it comes to me having an opinion in the matter, I can't do it. It's a very specific red flag, I would say. Looking back at how I've like treated past conflicts, I just really see someone who's like handled it poorly, and definitely there's gonna be an effort to try and change it in the future. So lastly, we kind of need to wrap this up because we're a little short on time. What are your green flags? We've talked so much about red flags, but what are things that immediately turns you on to a person?
Oh, this is kind of related to our previous episode where we talk about our love languages. A green flag is when they notice things about you that you don't state, or like things that you need help with and they do it for you willingly, or like they take the initiative to do things for you. I think it definitely shows how much that person cares for you when they notice what you need and they try to cater to that. But of course, I'm not saying that they have to do it every single time or do it like so consistently and just cater every single thing to you. It's definitely very heartening when I have friends or family members who do that for me. So that's a green flag. What about you?
I have a couple because I think I've really been blessed with like some great people around me. I would say there's some nuance to this, but a green flag for me would be when a person is okay telling you about like things that make them comfortable and not comfortable. Obviously, some people, myself included, can definitely see this as like you're being a burden on the other person. But I found that I have a really huge respect and like a very deep admiration for people who know where to draw their boundaries. But when they're telling other people about them, they are not being defensive. They're not being mean. They're just saying it as like, this is where I stand and I hope you'll like adhere to them. It shows that they have like a good sense of self-respect, but also it shows that they're pretty mature also and that they know how to deal with other people as well as with their own emotions. I really like seeing that in other people. Okay, I actually have one more, and it would be, this goes both ways, but when a person is really passionate about something and the other person is willing to sit down and listen to them talk about it, even if they don't have experience with it. In this case, a green flag for me would be both people involved. I love it so much when people are willing to sit down and listen to me talk about something I'm really interested in, even if maybe they don't care about it that much, or if it's not really in their wheelhouse. But also, one of my favorite things is watching people I know get really excited over the things they like. It's one of my favorite things because it feels like I'm watching someone genuinely be happy and genuinely be alive. That's not really a personality trait or anything, but watching people just kind of like come alive when they talk about things they like, it's just, man, it makes me so happy. It just seems to up the friendship points in my head.
Yeah, I can definitely see it being a green flag. Now that you've talked about it, it definitely reminds me that I do like it when people share their interest with me because it makes me feel like I'm closer to them.
When it feels almost like they trust you also with what they like. Because I feel like we talked about in the last episode, knowing that someone isn't going to invoke cringe culture on you and being able to be open with them, it's just such a nice feeling. Okay, Shandy, do you have any more green flags?
Nope.
Neither do I. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
Then I guess this is the end of our last episode of the Just Like Other Girls podcast. How do you feel about it?
Personally, when I first pitched this idea of a podcast to Alicia and for her to co-host this with me, even when we didn't know each other that well, it was because I wanted someone to converse with, basically. And I felt that Alicia was someone that was really open to conversations like me, open to my perspectives, and she's willing to listen. And that's what I enjoy about every conversation that we have. These 10 episodes definitely tested us. We had our technical difficulties, we had issues with ideation process, and even during filming itself, sometimes we just can't get the conversation going. And I'm really proud that we have still completed these 10 episodes and that I've learned a lot from Alicia and from this podcast. So I'm really thankful for that. And also, of course, thankful for the people who watch our videos and listen to our Spotify.
Man, I wasn't expecting you to get so mushy. I think definitely like one of the major reasons I'm kind of conflicted over the podcast ending is like I really like filming with you, honestly. I agree. It's really nice having someone to talk with about these, even though sometimes it may feel like we're just kind of talking to nobody in particular. I agree. It's been really nice seeing like the feedback from all of you, be it like in comments or in DMs. It's really nice. But also, selfishly, I'm so happy I don't have to edit anymore. The podcast take a little while to edit, and I will say I've definitely learned a lot, both from Shandy and like from the editing process, because Shandy's in charge of socials, I'm in charge of editing. This is kind of a selfish ask, but if any of you ever want to rewatch the old episodes, please start from like episode 4 onwards, because I feel like the first 3 were a hot mess. Yeah, but thank you all for like putting up with the two of us, and for it feels like that month when we just had technical difficulty after technical difficulty. It's kind of surreal coming to the end, but it's not the end, honestly. If you know us in real life, you know that like you can just talk to us anytime.
We are always happy to share. So
Wow, we really have shared a lot.
yeah, I remember we at some points we do think back on what we've said and we're like, did we just share too much? But also at this point I don't regret any of it because things that I've shared may be valuable to some people or maybe relatable to some people. And as long as it's something that y'all have enjoyed, then I'm happy too. Yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else, then thank you everybody really so much for watching or listening to us. We really have come to the end. But obviously, if you ever want to rewatch the episodes, you can. We won't be taking any of this down, at least as far as we know. So you can find us at YouTube or on Spotify, Just Like Other Girls Podcast. And if you want, you can find us in real life on Instagram, if you so please. So with that, we will not see you next week, but you can catch us in real life. Thank you everybody so much for watching or listening wherever you are watching or listening from.
Bye.
Bye.